Welcome back to the channel. This is Zach Mullins from the Grip Show, and today we're going to be talking about the FBBC grab ball. So this is a chunk of steel, a 3-inch diameter for this the ball or globe portion of it, and then this flange has been welded on here to prevent the fingers from crossing over that portion when it's connected to a loading pin or whatever. So we're here, and that just stops people from being able to wrap underneath here, and makes it more of a finger based sort of grip exercise or grip lift. A lot of times people will get with no flange, they'll have like the traditional grip training things that maybe like Rogue or Elite FTS or any company makes, where they just have a round ball with like a cable connection, and you'll see people training grip on that, but half the time they're not really holding it from the top, or even if they're doing pull-ups on it, their hand is wrapped so much over top of that portion that I just don't think it's really ever challenging the grip or really targeting anything in the way that it's advertised, or it could be better. So with this grab ball made by Fat Bastard Barbell Company, it's kind of unique in the sense that they put the flange out. So I'm going to cover kind of what are legal or illegal grips on this, kind of talk about that for anyone that's curious. And then I'm going to show kind of in detail how I grab it and how I kind of came to that, that grip that I kind of settled with for now. I'm just going to talk about this, some of the standings, and I'm going to kind of keep some of the stats pretty short in this one because I kind of want to cover more of the details for the grip. So in some of these videos where I've been talking about implements recently, I've mostly just been introducing the implement to you, talking about statistics and who's done what, and just kind of giving you a rough outline of the tool itself. For this one, I'm going to go a little more in depth on how I hold it, how I grab it, and just talk about some different things in, technique-wise, which I have not done in the other videos. I still plan on getting to some of that. So for anyone that tunes into the channel, I'm just talking very generic about some of these things to start with. But down the road, I will get into, maybe more details of how I train it, how I program it, technique-wise. I'm just starting off very slow with some of this stuff, but because the grab ball doesn't have a lot of info out there for people, and there's a lot of questions about the grip of it, it is coming up in this year's King Kong again. I think the last time it was contested was 2022. So definitely going to just go into a little bit more detail with this one. But if you didn't see that level of detail in the past videos, don't worry. Just because I talked about Little Bighorn in one video doesn't mean I can't do a second one, talk about technique or other stuff. So I am going to get a lot more in depth with a lot of these things, but I had some requests for the grab ball from some people, and I'm just going to kind of show you guys what I do. So to start off, this thing has been in over 14 contests. 535 athletes have logged lifts on it, and over 786 total lifts have been logged on this thing. With that being said, first place, basically the world record currently for Grip Sport International, is Ardo Gironin with 236 pounds. Joe Hodson in second place there with 227 pounds. And he recently just did that at a record breakers event in Sydney, Australia that he held. So some of these other lifts are like from 2020, 2021. This lift of 227 was a PR by Joe, and he just pulled that off. So congrats to Joe for doing that. Third all-time best is Tanner Merkel with 220 pounds. So really big lifts, considering this flange going through the center and the grips that you have to take on it. Those are serious weights with very strong fingers. The best lift I've pulled on this is 198 pounds. I think in that competition, I jumped up to 2-something and I missed. So 198 is the best I've logged in competition. And that is 17th overall on like the world leader list. So out of 786 total lifts or 535 athletes that have ever used this, I have the 17th best lift currently logged for competition. This is an event that I'm pretty good at, and it's just a tough one for people to figure out sometimes. So I'm going to kind of break down a little bit more detail about this. So let's just get into legal and illegal grips. It's pretty self-explanatory, but it never hurts to have like a visual thing. And I'm going to have this stuff brought up on the screen so we can kind of see, you know, the little diagram. And that's going to be from like one of the old promoter packets from King Kong with the rules in it. So that information is available. If you reach out to Eric Rusain or reach out to me, we can get you that info somehow. But for this, like I said, we have the 3-inch ball and this flange through the center. This flange is going to separate thumb from fingers, so the thumb will have to go on one side and the fingers are going to have to go on the other side. On the actual side of the flange, you can contact the sides of the flange here. So as I'm holding it, you can contact this right here. You can have basically incidental contact on the top. The area you cannot touch is this side, so you can't touch anything on the side here. So anything on the side or trying to stick your finger through here where the carabiner should be. So, you know, if you have really big hands or long hands, you can't be down here, you know, sticking the finger inside and trying to get an advantage that way. Or even if you were trying to maybe mask it a little bit and turn, you just can't have your finger going through there. But you can come in contact with this flange here. So all the way around this, you're good. If you start making contact with this, that's going to be a no lift, or that's not going to be passed by a competent judge. So, yeah, stay off of this. Everything else is pretty much fair game. And hopefully that makes sense with this and the diagram brought up as you can look at it. From there, the thing with this grab ball, a lot of people will get into, you know, holding this, you know, thumb on one side here. Now, how far your thumb goes forward or back or, you know, towards the center of this, you know, sphere, that can change the grip a lot. So when people are here, oftentimes the thing I'll see is if somebody has a, you know, smaller hand, and I'm going to kind of make my hand seem smaller, they might have a smaller hand. So maybe their fingers get down a little bit over on this side so they can kind of get under it a little bit as opposed to squeezing, you know, through the side of it. They're actually able to kind of scoop under, right? It's going to make it easier to hold. So they get the fingers under, but maybe if their hands are smaller, they don't really get their thumb under. So that thumb is going to be the first thing to pop or slide on this side. That's a possibility. If somebody tries to compensate for that by sliding the thumb down farther, then you'll notice that the fingers start to come up and don't have as much of a grip there either. So it's a tough thing to kind of balance and do. Another thing that I see people run into issues with is, I'm going to try to pretend I have a bigger hand, right? Is let's just say their hand was so big that, you know, their thumb is set wherever they want to place it, but their fingers continue to basically go into the flange here. So they have to kind of crimp their fingers up. The issues that this can cause is if I remove this one finger, hopefully you can see this, you can see that there is a gap in that finger joint where my hand is not flush with the grab ball. That's going to take all this pressure and all the weight that I'm holding here, and it's going to go straight to this joint, or attack basically, you know, a very specific tiny portion of the finger. And it could just be one finger, it could be two fingers in the middle, two fingers in the front, but you have a space there that isn't supported by the implement, and it's not really contoured to it. So if your hands are so big that you're on the side and you start getting gaps and you start seeing daylight in there on your fingers, you might want to adjust forwards or backwards to kind of get a smoother kind of just contour to the actual implement. And this is going to be different for everybody due to hand flexibility, hand shape, hand size. And that kind of gets me to how I grip it the way I do. I've always given Joe Hodson credit. As I mentioned, he's the second highest lift on this list. And Joe, in my opinion, is probably the most consistent and best lifter on this. At least from what we have for competition data. I don't know if many people train with it or use it in training, but the times it's been held in competition, Joe probably has the most lifts logged with, you know, numbers being that high and currently being second in the world right now. So when I first started, Joe was already in the sport for a couple years. I was having a really tough time lifting on this thing, looking at the database and everything. I was seeing all these huge numbers, 180 and higher, 180 pounds and up. And I was pulling like just ridiculously low and couldn't figure it out. Didn't feel good. Wasn't a strong grip. Looked at Joe being at the top of the leaderboard or way up there and reached out to him and kind of mimicked the way that he grabs it. I'm sure we're probably a little bit different. Our hands are slightly, different shapes and stuff, but that helped me, really improve this lift. So one of the things that Joe would do is, if we're here, I'll try to show this, is don't try to go out here wider, especially if you have smaller hands. You can, and like I said, this is just trial and error. You're going to have to figure this stuff out. But for me, I would bring my thumb in on the side of the flange, which is legal, and get that pressure here. And then I would bring my fingers forward so that I didn't have to go over this portion here. I just contour this hand almost like I'm holding a baseball or I'm throwing some kind of weird off-speed pitch, even though, you know, we're doing grip strength. But so instead of being here, I basically bring my thumb in, contact the flange, just like this, pinch kind of sideways a little bit. I get my hand down. Now here you can see my skin almost starts to cross over this portion, which would make it illegal. Once the tension is set in this position, and you might be able to see this in some of my lifting videos as well. Once that tension is set, I try to center my fingers, you know, kind of centered in here to where when that weight stack leaves the ground, this thing is supported by the strongest part of my fingers in my hand. So thumb is pinched, tight on the flange. It maybe looks like I have a little bit of crossover here. With that, that's going to go away whenever this weight comes up. So I'm going to show you guys what I mean. When I'm here, it's crossed over. And then here, as the pressure starts to build, I lift that up. It pulls that open, and everywhere I'm contacting is completely legal. So that is how I set it up. Basically pinching on the side of the flange, which is legal, avoiding this portion. There may be a little bit of incidental here, or it's crossing over looking like it's touching. These fingers are completely lined. I actually don't really put my pinky on there very much. I kind of just make this a 3-finger lift. If you can get your pinky on, cool. If you can't, don't worry about it. It's not the end of the world. You just have to find what works for you. So from here, I have the thumb pinched. These fingers are centered. I'm not going into this area where the carabiner is. I'm flush against the flange. The ball is actually supporting and contoured with my fingers right there. So from that portion, it's just exploding up, hitting the lift. And the thumb sometimes will catch almost like a plate pinch or something against this. So as I'm here, wrapping that up, and I'm basically holding it kind of like that, if that makes sense. Hopefully you can see that. It's not the best angle, but that is how I do the grab ball. So hopefully that sort of clears up any questions that people might have for this as far as, you know, where to touch. As long as you're not basically touching this ridge, you're pretty much good to go. Obviously, thumb, fingers have to be separated. You know, you can't like grab, you know, a finger crossing over here or something weird. So the thumb, one side, fingers, other side. How many fingers, how much you kind of slide to the front, or if you were to slide to the back. Any of this real estate on either side is fair game, however you want to maneuver it. So this one is tricky in the sense that it's one implement that's going to take you a little bit more time to probably figure it out or to find your optimal position. But yeah, I do think it is a good tool. I think that the flange makes it really good in the sense that, you know, people can't really cheat it, or they can't inflate stuff by going under it. And then it doesn't even really, it's not even really a grip lift if you go all the way through, right? So I really like that FBBC did this with the flange. I think it's a cool idea. It's hard with as many grip things out there in competition and for training purposes. It's hard to come up with something new that actually targets a purpose or hits something specifically, like the fingers or whatever, that hasn't already been created. So like I said, tons of companies already have these, you know, cannonballs or balls that you can just hold or pull downs with or do whatever, right? And it's for grip because it's opening your fingers up, open hand, which depending on how the person's using it, that can be true and that can work. But I really like how this basically is cheat proof. And yeah, aside from somebody trying to like stick their finger in where the carabiner is or doing some type of illegal grip competition wise, you can't really cheat this handle. You just got to figure it out, figure out where your hand is the strongest, what position, and go from there. But those are some things that I just wanted to point out is if your hand is too small, maybe try to not pinch at the, you know, widest angle of the sphere. If your hand is really, really big, maybe don't try to pinch with gaps in between your finger joints where it's not really like getting supported or in contact with the implement. And yeah, just kind of think about using that sort of pinch technique or some, angled position with the fingers to get a better, support grip on it. So hopefully that helps out. Hopefully it makes sense. But yeah, I mean, people are lifting, like, for example, to get into the top 10, you'd have to lift over 200 pounds or 205 pounds or more on this thing. That is a huge lift. I'm kind of right on the cusp of that right now. I have not lifted on this in a while. Last time I lifted on it was in the competition I mentioned where I pulled 198 and then missed my next jump at like 205 or something. So yeah, it's a unique tool. It's coming back for King Kong, the King Kong Grip Challenge this year. And if you're looking for something that isn't a rolling handle, isn't a pinch block, isn't a gripper, something that sort of falls into that oddball category, the Grab Ball by Fat Bastard Barbell Company is a cool thing to get. Really just weighs maybe slightly over a pound. It's like 1.3 pounds total. Depending on prices of steel and everything else in the shipping, probably around $50 for this thing is what you're looking at. But it has the ability to, really test the fingers. A lot of climbers do well at this. There's a lot of other grip lifters that have really strong fingers and tendons that, do well on this. But a lot of it comes down to the hand shape, hand size of the lifter, and how much time they put in to kind of figure out how to maximize their grip on this lift. Doesn't mean there aren't other training uses, but if we're sticking to competition, it's a max deadlift with this thing. So you got to get your hand in a position that's going to be able to support the 200 plus pounds, or even if you're lifting lighter than that, you're still going to be maxing out, kind of the finger tendons and other areas in your hand and thumb that maybe don't get that much weight or that much strain and stress put on them. So yeah, that's pretty much going to wrap it up for this video, everybody. Like I said, covered some top lifts, kind of covered my hand technique for this thing, how I got there by talking to Joe. Just kind of discussed, some of the benefits of, maybe maneuvering your hands, whether you got big or small hands. But yeah, that's really going to wrap it up. So thank you guys for watching, and let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you have any other issues or any other handles you'd like to see. I plan on continuing to do a lot more of these. I'm not trying to oversaturate things and do too many things. I want, kind of space it out a little bit. But yeah, if anybody has other tools, other implements, other grip questions, I can do videos on anything. And I have so much equipment here, access to so many different things. I've trained on all this stuff, competed on all this stuff. So any questions about training equipment, strength training, grip training, grip equipment, you want a closer look at it, you want more info, comment below and let me know what you want, and I'll eventually get around to it. So thanks again.